By default, ZBrush has viewport navigation controls that are very interesting to say the least. Particularly the controls to zoom in and out. They can be very cumbersome. Let's take a look at a third-party plugin that can make things much easier to deal with. So you probably know by now to pan and zoom. Well, to pan, you hold down Alt and then you click in an open area and it pans around. And then if you want to zoom, you keep holding down the stylus, but you let go of Alt and you can zoom in and out. Now, once you get used to it, it's not too bad, but I prefer to use controls that are similar to Maya. So let's take a look at a third-party plugin that can set things up to work that way. So for this, we're going to be installing a plugin, which means we have to restart ZBrush. So let's go ahead and close ZBrush right now. It's okay, we don't need to save that. Now, the plugin doesn't actually have its own website. We have to search for it in a forum. So go ahead and search ZBrush middle button plugin. And then for me, it's the first link, but it should be the ZBrush Central Forum page. And then on this page, it's actually on the 6th page. There is a download for it here on the first post. However, that's an old version. It won't work anymore. But this is made by Dennis Vick. So you can see his username here, denv. Just want to give credit to him for this. And let's go to the 6th page. However, we can only see up to 4. So let's go to the 4th page and now the 6th. And let's scroll down here. And we just have to dig through the forums to find this. It's on post 83. And what you want to do is actually download this first one. It's unfortunate that he doesn't describe the difference between these two, but actually the 1_6 is not the version you want. You want to get the 1.1.4R7. So just go ahead and click on that to download it. And then we'll open up this zip file. And most people are using the 64-bit version of ZBrush. So if you are, go ahead and open this folder. If not, if you're still on 32-bit, then you want to use this one. So I'll just open up this folder here. And then let's go ahead and just select these and copy them with Control-C. Now, unfortunately, this plugin is for Windows only. It doesn't work on the Mac version of ZBrush. Okay, now let's go to the ZBrush installation folder, Program Files, x86, Pixel Logic, the ZBrush version, Z Startup, and let's go into zplug64 and Control-V to paste it. Okay, before I restart ZBrush, there's actually some settings I want to change in the Wacom tablet preferences. So let's come down to our search here in Windows. I'm just going to find the Wacom tablet properties. And let's open that up. Okay, here we can set what these different buttons do on your Wacom stylus. So there should be your main tip on the stylus and then 2 buttons. So the button that's the furthest away from the tip, I like to have set to a right click. By default, I think it's set to a middle click. And then the button that's in between the two should be set to a middle click. I think by default it's set to a double click or something like that. But anyway, this is going to be much more useful for working in ZBrush and pretty much any other 3D software where you need to use the middle and right mouse buttons. And while we're here, we might as well just go into mapping. Make sure we've got force proportions turned on so that the proportions of the tablet match the proportions of your monitor. And then also make sure Windows Ink is turned off. That can just create effects that get in the way of the work you're trying to do. Okay, with those settings set, we can close this and we can start ZBrush back up again. Okay, in ZBrush, we can just start with any one of the default scenes or open your own file, doesn't really matter. And before we look at the plugin, there's just a couple preferences I like to set. So under Preferences, Interface, and Navigation, there's a couple things I like to do. I like to turn off Enable Right-Click Pop-Up. If this is turned on, then what happens if you do a right-click is you get this pop-up menu, and I don't want that to come up. And if you want to access that menu anyway, you can just hold down Spacebar. It's the same thing. So let's go back to Preferences and turn that off, and then just make sure that right-click navigation is turned on. Okay, with that set, let's go into Z Plugin, middle button. Let's enable this. And then under presets, you can see there's a 3ds Max preset, Blender, and Custom. I like to go into Custom and set it my own way. And now let's open up these shortcuts, and we can see what we get here. Okay, you can set these up however you like, but I'm going to set mine up so that it behaves like Maya. and most other Autodesk software. So for this, for panning, I like to use middle mouse button combined with Alt, and I'll turn off Shift here. And then for rotate, what I like to do is set it to just the right mouse button. And then for scale, which is actually zooming, I like to have it right mouse button with Alt instead of Control. And then also constrain to 90 degree. This is so that you can snap your viewport to perfect front and side, top, bottom views. By default, ZBrush works with Shift. That's how I like it, so we'll just leave it on Shift. And if you happen to be using a mouse, you can use the mouse wheel to zoom, or oftentimes a Wacom tablet will have a scroll pad, and you can use that, and it behaves like a mouse wheel. Okay, let's go ahead and apply this. All right, let's see how this works. Okay, so you can't really see the buttons that I'm pressing, but if you could, you would see that it's behaving like Maya now instead of like the ZBrush default. One last thing I want to do is save my preferences. Since I changed some settings in here, let's go to Config and Store Config. Okay, great. So now it's going to save those settings. Every time I start ZBrush, it'll be the same. Okay, now that I have a navigation scheme set up that feels more natural to me, I can work faster in ZBrush.